So I've been watching Formula 1 since 2007 and I've seen some amazing Grand Prix in that time. And in this video, I'm going to go over the 3 best Grand Prix that I think I've watched. Now, obviously, I'm sure there are better Grand Prix prior to 2007, but for me, it's easiest and most interesting for me to comment on Grand Prix that I've seen. But I resonate more with Grand Prix that I've seen, and there'll be better told stories as well. If I've seen them in real life, I can tell them in a much more interesting way now. So let's begin with the 3 best Grand Prix I think I've ever seen. So coming in at number 3, and you might be a bit surprised by this, I'm going to go for Bahrain 2014, the jewel in the desert between Rosberg and Hamilton. They're pretty much wheel to wheel from the word go. So it was Rosberg on pole with Hamilton second, and at the start Hamilton got the jump on Rosberg. However, during this first stint, Rosberg kept Hamilton very honest, and on lap 18 made his move to take the lead back.
It's lights out, and away we go. And who's got the best start out of the front? Looks like Rosberg ahead of Hamilton, who will have the inside line to turn 1. Valtteri Bottas just covers off Sergio Perez. Hamilton tries to go down on the inside as Perez locks up, and Hamilton nicks the lead from his teammate Nico Rosberg. It's then Valtteri Bottas losing pace because Felipe Massa has got into 3rd place. We're riding on board now with Jenson Button as Nico Rosberg down towards turn 4, tries to make a move around the outside. Hamilton's got his covered. He's going to have to go the long way round, forced off the track by his teammate Nico Rosberg, but there was no contact made, and it's Hamilton that leads them down.
But as the story goes in Bahrain 2014, Hamilton just managed to keep Rosberg behind.
Here comes Nico Rosberg into turn 1 for the lead. This Rosberg against Hamilton. Hamilton fights back. Rosberg has to concede the lead within a matter of meters, but Hamilton, was he caught unaware? Could he see Rosberg coming? He didn't manage to fend him off at the first time, but got the place straight back again.
So lots of midfield action behind, lots of jostling for position. There was overtaking everywhere you looked in this race. We also had the Maldonado and Gutierrez crash, which left Gutierrez upside down. An awful overtake from Maldonado, proving once again how he really wasn't a very good F1 driver.
Lewis Hamilton pits while we watched the replays, but he just gave him an almighty shunt from the side there. Maldonado coming out of the pits. You have to ask, what was he looking at as he came down the inside?
Whoa, what was that?
So Mercedes split the strategy of Rosberg and Hamilton, giving Rosberg the faster soft tyre at the end and Hamilton the slower medium tyre in the middle stint. However, after that final round of pit stops, the safety car came out, which completely wiped out Hamilton's lead, which meant Rosberg was right behind him with a full stint to go on much faster tyres, when the gap should have been about 8 or 9 seconds, giving Hamilton that buffer which he now didn't have. So once the safety car went in, Hamilton and Rosberg were wheel to wheel for pretty much the entire of the final stint. They were jostling for position, and Rosberg was a lot faster on those faster tyres. But Hamilton's skill kept Rosberg behind with some very good defensive driving. He won the race, his 2nd win of the 2014 season, in dominant fashion for Mercedes, proving just how dominant their car was that year. It also left Sergio Perez to take 3rd place on the podium, as he made the most of all the carnage and chaos behind him in the midfield to come through and take his first podium for Force India.
And Mercedes are going to make it back-to-back 1-2s. It's Lewis Hamilton who once again wins the Grand Prix. Hamilton triumphs in Bahrain from his teammate Nico Rosberg, and it is smiles all round of both celebration and relief in equal measure. They're waiting to start the podium party down at Force India, but Sergio Perez is going to have to hang on and hold off Ricciardo for one more time, and he does so to finish in 3rd. Ricciardo, who started 13th on the grid, takes a brilliant...
Without a doubt, the best Bahrain Grand Prix we've ever seen. It was the first Bahrain Grand Prix under the lights, and it made all the difference. It kick-started the new era of the Bahrain Grand Prix in great fashion. Bahrain was usually quite a dull Grand Prix, and it was just so surprising how that completely flipped around, which is why it makes it into my top 3.
Time to digest, because it just had a little bit of everything.
Coming at 2nd, we have Canada 2011. Now this is definitely a contender for one of the best Grand Prix of all time. So torrential rain meant that the race started behind the safety car. And then after a few laps, the safety car went in, and on the first corner, Hamilton spun round Mark Webber. Mark Webber dropped to the back, and Hamilton lost a lot of positions. So he had to start a fight back, and on his fight back, he encountered his teammate Jenson Button. Tried to go around the outside on the pit straight. Jenson Button didn't see him, and the 2 McLarens came together. Lewis Hamilton was out of the race with broken suspension.
Webber and Hamilton under investigation for that first corner. And will Lewis Hamilton get another drive-through penalty? What do you think?
Well, I think in that case, there's no question as we see him.
Oh,
to
nice.
McLaren's touch! That is, well, Lewis Hamilton obviously with suspension damage, puncture. I'd be surprised if he makes it round to back into the pits. But the problem in those conditions is Jenson Button can't see in his mirrors. There's so much spray.
Shortly afterwards, a lot more rain came. So much so that the red flag had to come out and the race was stopped, which contributed to it being the longest race in F1 history. Just over 4 hours this race lasted. So once the rain cleared and the racing resumed, it didn't take long for the next minor incident. Jenson Button was making his way through the field like he had to a lot in this race on many fight decks. He went down the inside of Fernando Alonso, they made contact, spun Alonso out, Alonso was beached on the curbs and couldn't continue.
In, where is that? Is that
That's
the
his second chicane.
Yeah.
It's in turn 3, I think.
Look,
and Button's got a puncture.
I wonder then if Jenson Button and Fernando Alonso got together somewhere. Now, let's have a look at this. So, yes, it was Button up the inside of Alonso. Alonso didn't want to yield, and contact.
Well,
that's Jenson's second contact.
From this, Jenson Button had a puncture, which meant he dropped to last. On top of that, he had a drive-through penalty for causing a collision, so he dropped to last again.
The McLaren of Button, who is in the pits. So it's 4 pit stops and a drive-through for Button.